How about keyless entry? A lot of apartment buildings, we were initially thinking of going that way. We've seen others.
Yeah.
It seems great from a key management perspective.
But yeah, the cost was really expensive to get those installed, and then also getting the tenants to on board to use those type of keys didn't make sense in our scenario. But like I said, definitely on Class A, going something to keyless type entry, it can be a cost savings in the long run, because you're not having to change out as many locks as you would on with traditional locks. But again, there's definitely that big cost up front for you to be able to implement something like that.
All right, now we've acquired the property. Now what?
Yeah.
What were some of the next learning lessons for you?
Even little things, like one thing that stands out is what I would call key management, let's say. So we bought Woolworth and 29th. How many units was that combined?
26.
26 units combined.
Mm-hmm.
So getting 26 sets of keys, not only for the units themselves, the common areas, all the entrances into the buildings, the laundry rooms, utility rooms. So at closing, you get this big pile of keys. And with single family, it doesn't really happen. Like, you'll get a set of keys, but oftentimes, with us anyways, we go over the property right away, change out locks, and we use our own keys. So with multifamily, that was a big thing. We got this big set of keys, and it's like, oh, okay, didn't really think about this. The keys had some labels on it, went through everything, kind of looked like everything was there, set them to the side. But then as we moved into operations and rehabbing this thing and wanting to access units, come to find out, half those keys didn't work. They were old keys. Some units would have literally 10 keys associated with it, and it just became a huge cluster. So key management was one of those things that's like, okay, we got to figure out a process for this. So for us, it's when you acquire a building, we'll immediately go in and we'll change out every single lock on that building. And sometimes larger buildings, you spend a chunk of money doing it, but we'll change everything out to our master locks. Our locks happen to have, our deadbolts have 2 key cylinders, one for tenant access, and then you can rotate the face of the cylinder to expose a master key. So that way we have one master key that can get into an entire apartment complex for us. But then that way, now that we've changed everything out, now we have way less keys, and we actually know what those keys are for.
Mm-hmm.
Last point to key management would also be mailbox keys.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing, again, you don't know what you don't know, but now looking back on it, the mailbox keys are something that we weren't super diligent to making sure that we had. Mailbox keys, not having those, that becomes pretty pricey to get mailbox keys, because what you have to do is the post office will have to come out and drill out locks. And then in Omaha, for example, that's about $7,500 for every lock that they're drilling out and replacing. So when you don't have mailbox keys for 26 units, we had some keys. It's not like we didn't have any, but that cost can add up super quick that you just weren't expecting. So
Mm-hmm.
it really started to stand out. It's like, okay, next purchase, we've got to be diligent about at least mailbox keys, because like I said, now we just go in and change out all the locks regardless anyways.
How about keyless entry? So a lot of apartment buildings, we were initially thinking of going that way. We've seen others.
Yeah.
It seems great from a key management perspective.
Yeah.
But obviously we didn't go that route pretty much for all of our buildings today.
We do have it on Lafayette, just a laundry room though.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, looking into
almost
it,
all of them. Yeah.
looking into it, they're definitely more suited for Class A type buildings. I'd say Woolworth and 29th were more Class B. 29th was probably Class C. But yeah, the cost was really expensive to get those installed, and then also getting the tenants to on board to use those type of keys. It just didn't make sense in our scenario. But like I said, definitely on Class A, going something to keyless type entry can be a cost savings in the long run, because you're not having to change out as many locks as you would on with traditional locks. But again, there's definitely that big cost up front for you to be able to implement something like that.
Yeah. And one of the cost factors that played into it was just people utilizing it, but also potentially destroying the locks. We go out and spend all this money, and somebody comes along and damages those locks. And in 29th and Woolworth that we had picked up, we'll touch on this in a second about the type of tenants that we had, but there were people in there that were even inviting over people that were damaging specific areas in the property or doing damaging. So it was hard for us to even go back and trace who was doing this to the property. So in a scenario like that, we just put in all these nice new door locks and somebody screws up a bunch of them and we can't go pull back our costs. And now we're just eating it. Whereas, a deadbolt sort of thing, really hard to screw up. And again, if it is, much cheaper to go out and replace. So those were some of the big factors that played into it, but definitely a nice feature to have of like keyless entry sort of thing. You could have remote access, give remote access to folks. And
that should be almost a topic for another episode, is just all the different automations that can go into buildings now between the entries and thermostats and you name it. There's a lot of technologies and automations that you could potentially put in when you're buying a new building.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.